What if the most feared man in the galaxy woke up one day, and the suit was no longer keeping him alive? What if Darth Vader opened his eyes, took a full breath with his own lungs, and realized he finally had the one thing Palpatine never wanted him to have again: a future? Because in this timeline, Vader does not remain trapped in metal. He gets his real body back, and the moment he does, the Empire begins to shake. Tonight, we are going to see what happens if Darth Vader heals completely, leaves the armor behind, learns a truth hidden from him for years, and is forced to choose between becoming the Emperor's perfect weapon or becoming Anakin Skywalker again. And at the center of this story is one discovery on Mustafar that changes everything. Pain was always there. It lived in every breath Vader took. It crawled through the wires in his armor. It sat behind his eyes like fire that never went out. Every step in the suit reminded him of Mustafar, of lava, of Obi-Wan, of the moment Anakin Skywalker died. Or at least, that was what Palpatine wanted him to believe. Inside his meditation chamber, Vader sat in silence while droids checked the systems in his armor. One droid spoke in a cold voice. "My lord, your pain suppressors require adjustment." Vader did not move. He only answered with one word: "Leave." The droids obeyed. When the chamber doors closed, the silence felt even worse. Vader reached up slowly and touched the side of his mask. The suit had saved him, but it had also chained him. Palpatine told him the armor made him stronger. Vader knew the truth. The suit made him dependent. It kept him alive, but never whole. That night, Vader made a choice. Not as a servant, not as a Sith apprentice, as a man with nothing left to lose. He took a private shuttle and flew to Mustafar, back to the world that had destroyed him. Mustafar had changed. Dark towers stood where broken stone once burned. Rivers of lava moved like glowing scars across the planet. Vader walked alone into the lower ruins beneath his fortress. There, hidden under old Sith markings, he found a sealed chamber. The door opened only when he touched it with the Force. Inside was not treasure, not a weapon, not a throne. It was a holocron, black, ancient, alive with dark energy. Vader lifted it carefully. Then the chamber filled with a strange voice. Soft, old, dangerous. "You come broken," it said, "but not beyond repair." A blue phantom formed above the holocron. Not Palpatine, not Bane, not some forgotten temple guard. Darth Plagueis. Vader's breath caught inside the mask. The Master Palpatine had betrayed. The Sith who once searched for a way to control life and death. Plagueis looked at Vader and spoke again. "The body can be remade, but not without cost." Vader stepped forward. "Teach me." The Phantom answered at once. "If you become whole again, you will no longer belong to the pain that controls you. Ask yourself, Lord Vader, if the pain leaves, what remains?" Vader did not answer, because deep inside, he already knew. If the pain left, Anakin might still be there. The ritual lasted for weeks, then months. It was not healing in the way the Jedi understood healing. It was older, crueler, a mix of Sith alchemy, back to immersion, nerve regrowth, and pure will. Vader's armor was removed piece by piece. Machines kept him alive. The holocron guided the process. Every broken nerve screamed. Every scar reopened. Every memory returned with it. He saw his mother dying in the sand. He saw Padme crying on Mustafar. He saw Obi-Wan walking away through the fire. He saw Palpatine smiling in the dark. Again and again, the chamber tried to break him. Again and again, Vader refused. One morning, the pod opened. For the first time in years, he stood without the armor. No helmet, no mechanical breath, no burned metal over ruined flesh. He inhaled. A real breath. It hurt, but it was his. He stepped toward a black mirror on the chamber wall and froze. The face staring back at him was not the boy from Tatooine, not the hero of the Clone Wars, not the monster in the mask. It was something in between. Scarred, older, severe, but human. Anakin Skywalker was looking back at himself. Far away on Coruscant, Emperor Palpatine opened his eyes. Something had shifted. A wound in the Force had changed shape. For years, Vader's pain had been a chain the Emperor could pull whenever he wished. Now that chain had loosened. Palpatine smiled at first, then he felt the rest. Not just healing, independence. That was dangerous. He called for the Imperial Guard. He ordered secret surveillance on Mustafar. He activated hidden codes inside Vader's command network. If Vader was changing, Palpatine wanted control before it became rebellion. But when Vader returned to his fortress, he was already different. Stormtroopers bowed, but this time their fear felt small. Officers spoke, but he listened less to their words and more to the truth beneath them. His senses were sharper now, his anger was quieter, and that frightened him more than rage ever had. Because rage was Vader, silence belonged to Anakin. As Palpatine watched him, Vader began searching the Emperor's private archives, not for power, for lies. If Palpatine had hidden a way to heal, what else had he hidden? Deep in a sealed chamber aboard an Imperial command station, Vader found an encrypted file marked with ancient security clearance. He broke it open. Inside were records Palpatine had never meant him to see, medical reports, Senate spies, secret communications, and one personal file, Padme Amidala. Vader's hand shook. He opened it. The file said what no one had ever dared tell him. Padme had not died because Obi-Wan betrayed him. She had not died because the Jedi took her away. She had died after Palpatine's own medical agents interfered with her treatment. Sedation delays, manipulated droids, energy extraction logs. Palpatine had not only used Anakin's fear, he had made sure the fear came true. Vader stared at the screen in silence. Then he whispered the words like they were poison. "You killed her." For years he had believed he caused Padme's death. Now he understood something worse. Palpatine had built that guilt like a cage. He had taken Anakin's grief and welded it into Darth Vader. That was the moment the Empire truly began to die. Before Vader could act, a second revelation arrived. An intercepted Rebel transmission, a name tied to repeated Rebel victories, Skywalker. Vader already knew Luke mattered. But now, with his mind clear and his body restored, he saw the truth immediately. This was no random pilot, no lucky farm boy. This was his son. Palpatine had hidden that too. Not because he feared Luke alone, because he feared what father and son might become together. Vader did not report the discovery. He followed it. On a ruined moonbase used by the rebellion, Vader cornered Luke before the battle outside was done. Luke ignited his saber. The blue light shook in his hand. He expected the machine, the breathing, the black mask. Instead, he saw a scarred man in dark robes, with hard eyes, and a voice that sounded almost human. "Who are you?" Luke asked. Vader answered slowly. "The truth your mentors feared." Luke tightened his grip. "Vader." Anakin looked at him. "No, not only that." He stepped into the pale light. "I am your father." Luke's face changed. Shock first, then anger, then confusion. Because this was not the monster he had prepared to hate. This was someone far more dangerous, someone he might believe. Luke wanted answers. Anakin gave him some. Not all. He told him about the war, about the fall, about Obi-Wan, about Padme, but he did not ask for forgiveness. He had done too much for that. Instead, he gave Luke a warning. "Palpatine lied to everyone, to the Senate, to the Jedi, to me, and if he learns what I found, he will destroy entire worlds before he lets go of power." Luke did not lower his saber. "How do I know this is not another trap?" Anakin looked away for 1 second, because it was a fair question. Then he answered, "You do not." That honesty did more than any speech could have done. For the first time, Luke saw regret in him. Real regret. Not weakness, not performance. Pain. The battle outside grew louder. Rebel alarms screamed through the base. Imperial ships were descending. Palpatine had tracked them both. Of course he had. He always planned for betrayal. Luke looked at the door, then back at Anakin. "If you are telling the truth, then help us survive." Anakin nodded once. And for the first time since Mustafar, he fought not as Vader the Hunter, but as a father buying his son time. The battle was brutal. Imperial troops stormed the moonbase from 3 sides. TIE fighters turned the sky to fire. Palpatine's message came through every open channel. "Lord Vader has failed me. All personnel are authorized to terminate him." That was the moment the Empire understood something impossible. Darth Vader was now prey. Anakin led Luke and a small rebel squad through collapsing tunnels under the base. He used the Force to hold back explosions. He cut through dark troopers sent only to kill him. Again and again Luke watched him and saw pieces of 2 men fighting inside one body. The ruthless precision of Vader, the buried heart of Anakin. At the final launch bay, the Emperor's personal guard was waiting. Red blades flashed. Pikes cracked against durasteel. Luke nearly fell under the first attack, but Anakin stepped between them, catching a strike across his shoulder. He did not cry out. He only said one thing: "Run." Luke refused. For the first time, he fought beside his father, back to back. Blue and red light crossed the chamber. Not in hate, in survival. It was not redemption, not yet, but it was the first step toward it. After escaping the moon base, Luke took Anakin to the one place he never expected to return. A hidden rebel sanctuary where old Jedi records were stored. There, Luke activated a message left behind by Obi-Wan Kenobi. The recording was meant for Luke, but now Anakin heard it too. Obi-Wan's voice filled the room. "If you are seeing this, then truth has finally reached you. There may come a day when Anakin Skywalker still lives in some broken form. If that day comes, remember this: the good in him was never fully destroyed, only buried under pain, fear, and the Emperor's design. Anakin stood completely still. Obi-Wan had known, not everything, but enough. Luke looked at him. Ben believed there was still good in you. Anakin's face hardened, then broke for just a second. Obi-Wan should have killed me. Luke shook his head. No, he should have saved you sooner. That line hit harder than any blade, because it carried the truth of the whole tragedy. Not one failure, many failures. The Jedi failed him, Palpatine twisted him, and Anakin chose badly when it mattered most. But now one choice still remained. What would he do next? Palpatine did not wait. He gathered the Imperial fleet above Coruscant and prepared emergency fear broadcasts across the galaxy. If he could not keep Vader loyal, he would use the chaos to rule through terror again. Anakin saw the pattern instantly. He had helped build it. He knew every layer, every weakness. So father and son went to Coruscant together, not to overthrow the Empire with one speech, to cut off the head before it burned the whole body. Inside the Imperial Palace, the final confrontation began. Palpatine stood smiling before the great window of the throne chamber. "You return improved," the Emperor said, "and still predictable." Anakin stepped forward. "You murdered her." Palpatine smiled wider. "And I made you." For a moment, the room itself felt like it would split apart. Lightning burst from the Emperor's hands. Luke deflected one stream, Anakin took the other. Pain flooded his body again, but this time he did not collapse. He was no longer chained to the armor. No machine broke, no respirator failed. He endured. Luke pushed forward. Anakin moved with him. Together they forced the lightning back. Palpatine snarled. The throne room trembled. Glass exploded behind him. Then Anakin spoke the words he should have said years ago. "You do not own my pain anymore." With one final surge, father and son hurled the Emperor into the reactor core beneath the palace. This time, no apprentice watched in silence. This time, Anakin chose the end himself. When the sun rose over Coruscant, the Empire had not vanished, but it had cracked. And in that broken dawn, the galaxy saw something it never thought it would see. Darth Vader standing without the suit. Not as a symbol of fear, as proof that Palpatine's greatest weapon had been a prisoner all along. Anakin Skywalker did not become a hero again in one day. That would be too easy, too clean, too false. But he did become something real, a man forced to live with what he had done. A father trying to protect what remained. And maybe that was the strangest ending of all. The monster did not die in the armor. He stepped out of it. The smoke in the throne room was thick, smelling of ozone and burned circuits. The reactor shaft below them remained a silent, bottomless chasm where the Emperor had fallen. For the first time in over 20 years, the Imperial Palace was quiet. Luke lowered his lightsaber, his breath coming in ragged gasps as he looked down into the dark abyss. Then he turned his gaze to Anakin. The man standing beside him was not a phantom or a monument of DarkSide terror. He was just a human being, bearing the deep physical and emotional scars of a life torn between two worlds. Anakin stood staring at his own hands. The mechanical glove of the past was gone, replaced by real flesh and bone, though the dark residue of the DarkSide ritual still lingered under his skin like cooling ash. "It's done," Luke whispered, the reality of it barely settling into his mind. "He's gone." Anakin slowly shook his head, his sharp eyes fixed on the empty throne of the Sith. "A tyrant doesn't rule just because he holds the seat, Luke. He rules because the machine he built is still running." Outside the shattered windows of the upper spire, the city planet of Coruscant was already descending into chaos. Across 1,000 sectors, Imperial communications arrays were flashing red. Without Palpatine's iron grip to coordinate the military junta, Moffs and regional governors were panicking. Some were mobilizing fleets to secure power for themselves. Others were cutting transmissions, terrified of what would come next. The monolithic empire was fracturing into 100 hungry warlords overnight. Luke stepped closer to his father. "The rebellion is moving its fleet into the mid-rim. They think the war is over. But if the Moffs take control of the remaining Star Destroyer fleets, then the galaxy bleeds twice as hard." Anakin finished, his voice steady. He clipped his lightsaber to his belt. It felt lighter now, not because the weapon had changed, but because the man carrying it had finally stopped fighting for a lie. "We don't have much time before the High Command realizes Palpatine isn't answering their calls." "What do we do?" Luke asked. Anakin looked back at his son, a look of profound, heavy clarity in his eyes. "We take the codes. We dismantle the throne from the inside." The descent into the lower levels of the Imperial Palace was a ghost walk. The red-armored Imperial Guards, once fanatically loyal to Palpatine, stood at their posts in the grand corridors. But as Anakin and Luke walked past them, something in the Force had shifted. They sensed the death of their master, yet they also sensed the terrifying, undeniable presence of the man who had walked out of the shadows to replace him. None of them raised a weapon. They simply stepped aside, recognizing that the old order had burned away to nothing. In the central intelligence hub, droids hummed quietly under blue terminal lights. Anakin sat down at the primary command console, the very terminal where Palpatine had once orchestrated the Clone Wars, tracked the Jedi, and engineered the misery of the galaxy. His fingers moved across the controls, breaking through encrypted firewalls with the cold, calculated precision he had mastered as Darth Vader, but guided now by the sharp awareness of Anakin Skywalker. File transfer initiated, a metallic droid voice reported. Line by line, gigabytes of classified Imperial intelligence began downloading onto a portable data core. "What is that?" Luke asked, standing guard at the blast doors. "Everything," Anakin replied without looking up. "Every hidden shipyard in the Outer Rim, every secret supply line. Every psychological profiling file the Emperor kept on the Imperial Senate. If the rebellion wants to fight a war, I'm giving them the blueprint to win it in weeks instead of decades. And the Moffs. I'm sending an encrypted broadcast to every regional commander," Anakin said, his hand pausing over the final execution key. "Not an order, an announcement. The Emperor is dead, and any commander who tries to fill his shoes will find out very quickly that I am no longer tied to his leash." Craptive leash. Luke watched him, a quiet sense of awe replacing the fear he had felt just hours before on the rebel moon. "You're really doing it." "I'm cleaning up my own mess," Anakin said softly. He pulled the data core from the slot and stood up. "Or at least, I'm trying to." A sudden, jarring alarm echoed through the palace walls. Red emergency lights flooded the corridors outside the command hub. The holoscreens above them flickered to life, projecting the face of a high-ranking Imperial admiral aboard a nearby Star Destroyer. "Attention all units," the Admiral's voice blared through the speakers, tight with panic and suspicion. "This is Grand Admiral Thrawn's orbital command relay. Reports indicate a catastrophic security breach in the inner sanctum. Lock down the central spire. Find out who survived the throne room." As Luke gripped his lightsaber hilt. "They know." Anakin didn't panic. He simply looked at the blast doors as the heavy thud of approaching stormtrooper boots began to reverberate through the floorboards. "Of course they know," Anakin said, a faint, bitter shadow of a smile touching his lips. "Tyrants don't go quietly into the night, Luke, even when they're already dead." He tossed the data core to his son, catching Luke completely by surprise. "Take this to the landing pad," Anakin commanded, his tone leaving no room for argument. "Get off Coruscant. Get it to the Alliance leadership." Luke's eyes widened in disbelief. "What? No, I'm not leaving you here." "You have to," Anakin said, stepping past him toward the threshold of the room, his hand resting calmly on his lightsaber. "The stormtroopers out there aren't looking for a rebel boy. They're looking for Darth Vader. As long as I am standing in this corridor, every eye in this fleet will be locked on me." "Father, go, Luke!" Anakin shouted, turning back with an intensity that burned with the absolute force of his old self, but tempered with a father's fierce, desperate protection. "I spent 20 years being a shield for a monster. Let me be a shield for something that matters, just once." Luke swallowed hard, the weight of the galaxy pressing down on his shoulders. He looked at the data core in his hand, then back into the unblinking, human eyes of the man who had given him life. "I'll see you again," Luke said, his voice cracking slightly. "Go," Anakin repeated gently. As Luke vanished down the emergency maintenance shaft toward the hangar bays, Anakin Skywalker turned to face the heavy iron blast doors as they began to hiss open. Smoke billowed into the room. Rows of white-armored stormtroopers poured into the corridor, their E-11 blasters raised, backed by the imposing, crushing bulk of dark troopers. At the front of the formation, an officer shouted an order. "Halt! By order of the Imperial Navy, drop your, by the Force, it's him." The soldiers hesitated. They had spent their entire military careers terrified of the black armor, the mechanical breathing, and the crimson blade of Darth Vader, but what they saw standing before them now was different. No mask. No respirator. Just a scarred, battle-worn man in dark robes, looking back at them not with the mindless rage of a beast, but with the quiet, terrifying resolve of a man who had finally found his way home. Anakin slowly slid his thumb forward. Asterisk hiss. Asterisk. A brilliant beam of azure light erupted from the hilt, casting a cool, bright blue glow against the red emergency lights of the Imperial corridor. It wasn't the red blade of a Sith, it was the color of a Jedi. "Tell the fleet," Anakin said, his voice echoing cleanly down the hall without the mechanical distortion of a respirator, "that the war is over." He raised his blade, stepped forward into the smoke, and finally began to write his own ending.